So as the U.S. is currently engaged in arming and funding Israel as they committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, he's really leaning into a specific theme for his campaign. Of course, his whole thing is he wants the Haitian immigrants, legal immigrants, by the way, stop eating the cats, stop eating the dogs, stop eating the pets. He was spreading a literal Nazi propaganda lie. He did it at the debate, and he's really leaned into, we're going to do mass deportation. We're going to do mass deportation. He, again, says he's going to deport the legal immigrants, the Haitian immigrants in Springfield. But now, guys, can you imagine he's actually found a way to take it a step further from where he was with his Nazi propaganda. So here's what he posted the other day. We are now known all throughout the world as Occupied America. Let me just pause for a sec. Donald Trump, who completely and utterly denies that Palestinians are illegally occupied, right, in the West Bank, completely denies it, in fact, wants to give Israel the ability to totally annex all the West Bank, denies that occupation, but says the U.S. is occupied? Yeah, we are occupied by you and neocon freaks. You know, billionaire corporatist freaks, the oligarchy that's taken us over, and you're part of that oligarch class. All right, he says, we are now known all throughout the world as Occupied America, but to everyone here in Colorado and all across our nation, I make you this vow. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. I will rescue Aurora and every town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put these vicious, bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country. Let me just pause because I speak Trumpian and I can decode that for you. What he's alluding to are fake news stories that there's these Venezuelan gangs that have taken over entire towns and cities in America, bro. This lie started with some apartment complex shit, and they made it seem a Venezuelan gang has taken over the entire apartment complex, bro. And then somebody went and talked to all the people, and that's not true. That's not what's happening at all, right? There were some crimes done, and some of them may have been by gang members, but the idea that a Venezuelan gang took over an entire apartment complex or an entire town or city is preposterous fake news. But in the age of social media, fake news spreads insanely fast. So that's what he's alluding to. I will liberate you from the Venezuelan migrant gangs that are now running the country. But they're not running the country, and you already said you want to mass deport people, including legal immigrants. So who's really the threat here? He continues, in honor of Jocelyn Nungare, Laken Riley, Rachel Morin, and all of the others that are dead and mortally wounded at the hands of migrants who should have never been allowed in our country, I am announcing today that upon taking office, we will have an Operation Aurora at the federal level to expedite removals of this savage gang. I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil. No person who has inflicted the violence and terror that Kamala Harris has inflicted on this community can ever be allowed to become president of the United States. So let me reiterate that. I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Okay, well, let's see if maybe he elaborates on that a little bit here.
To expedite the removals of these savage gangs, and I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798. This was put there. 1798. That's a long time ago, right? To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil. Who would have ever thought that a president or a future president would ever have to stand here and say such things? Who would think that that's even possible to have to do?
The Aliens Enemy Act of 1798 gives the government the authority to arrest, detain, or deport both citizens and non-citizens alike. This was the basis of the United States arresting and detaining Japanese Americans during World War II. Japanese internment was done with this legal pretext. Trump is not bluffing. This is part of the plan. At the same time, he just said the other day in an interview that he wants to tackle, quote, the enemy within. The enemy within. He said he wants to go after the enemy within, and then he says he wants to deploy the National Guard of the U.S. military against liberals and Democrats. He says that. He wants to invoke the Aliens Enemy Act of 1798. Same legal justification that was used for Japanese internment. And gee, I wonder how this is going to go. I wonder what it's going to look like. I wonder what ultimately he's going to do. I'm sure it won't be a massive, colossal, gargantuan, humongous, authoritarian crackdown on the entire country where he goes after both illegal immigrants and legal immigrants, including women and children, innocent men, and, I don't know, maybe concentrates them, say, in a camp, or deports all of them and implodes the economy. Guys, these are the same people who refuse to acknowledge the reality that both documented immigrants and undocumented immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than native-born U.S. citizens. And I'm supposed to believe, they're only going to go after the real bad guys and the rapists and the murderers and the criminals, bro. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to be totally haphazard and authoritarian and crack down across the board. Again, he just said the other day he wants to deploy the National Guard and the U.S. military against the enemy within, which he calls the radical left. Anybody to the left of fucking Attila the Hun to him is radical left. What are we even really talking about here, guys? This has gone so out of hand. This is so out of control. And here we are. This is what we're dealing with. This should terrify all of you. Because, as I said, 2016 Trump was certainly said his normal bigoted, xenophobic stuff, said a lot of horrible things, but he also paired that with economic populism, where he made it seem like I'm going to protect your jobs, I'm going to protect Social Security, I'm going to protect Medicare. NAFTA was bad, it outsourced all the jobs, there's corruption, and big money is controlling our politics, and I'm self-funded, I don't do that. Right, he lied, but that's what he said. So it was good campaign strategy. But then he governed, and he governed like George W. Bush on steroids, okay? Let's call a spade a spade. And then now, none of the populism is there anymore. He's just becoming more and more overtly fascist in his rhetoric. There's nothing appealing about this. But here we are. So, Kamala's saving grace at the moment might be that this guy is so insane and so unhinged and so over the top and so extreme that it almost wouldn't even matter what kind of a campaign Kamala runs, right? Because there's nothing appealing about this. It's just incredibly, insanely dark. It's like if Stephen Miller and Hitler had a baby and he's crafting the talking points for today. That's what we're looking at. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.